this is Mrs. Wagner, and I'm at McDonald Farm at the Conservation Foundation, and it's a nice winter day. So have you ever wondered how animals survive in the winter? So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how animals are adapted to their environment. So how are they able to get food in the winter? How are they able to find shelter or even make their own shelter? And how are they able to avoid predators, or if they are the predator, maybe get their prey? So we're going to be looking at physical adaptations as well as behavioral adaptations. So one animal that we are going to be talking about are deer, and you can see maybe behind me, maybe you can count how many behind me are some white-tailed deer. And a lot of times in the winter they will find shelter in the woods, and you can see how they're in the woodland area right now. Another thing they do for their to survive is they use camouflage. So if you can figure out how many deer there are, you're pretty good, because their fur is really blending in to their background. And the white tail, when they flick it up, that is actually a warning to the other deer that there might be a predator nearby. So we're going to invite you to learn about some Illinois animals and how they're adapted, and we're really going to focus on the winter and how they're able to find food, how they're able to find shelter, and how they're able to get away from predators.
Hello, my name is Mrs. Phillips, and I'm here with a friend. Can you look at this animal? What kind of animal do you think this is? With this big tail? It's an American beaver. Did you know they were, did you know they were quite this big? Look how big this animal is. Do you know where it lives? It lives in wetlands. It actually creates its own shelter right along rivers. And this animal has all sorts of adaptations. One of the adaptations is that it is a vegetarian. So it only eats vegetable or plant matter. So it has these really interesting, this is a skull. It's not a real skull, it's a replica. But it has these teeth, and you see these big teeth. These big teeth are always growing. And in fact, there's two different types of material. The orange material enamel is really hard, but this white material is dentin. It's really, really soft. So it creates a chisel, and it's almost like little scissors that's able to grab all of the food that it wants to eat, as well as the kind of logs and materials it wants to build its own shelter. So have you ever been walking along a river and seen a tree with lots of teeth marks in it? That is a beaver, and it's creating its shelter. So it lives along the rivers because look at the size of its legs. Are these legs long or short? They're pretty short, right? So do you think it could outrun a coyote? Probably not. But you know what? It can outswim a coyote. So you see this tail? This tail is like a little flipper. It's a rudder. It actually moves it fast through the water. And it also has like little webbed feet, almost like scuba shoes. And then because of the webbed feet and because of that tail, it can move really, really fast through water. A lot faster than a coyote, which is kind of like a dog, right? So it is able, because of these adaptations, oh, one more, shelter with the this fur. I wish you could feel this fur. It's really, really soft. And it's got two different kinds of hair. It's got the really kind of soft, downy hair in the underneath, and then these long, coarse hairs. And what the animal does is it takes an oil from by its tail and spreads it all over these coarse hairs. So it's basically putting on a scuba suit. So it has a nice waterproof coat to stay nice and warm. It has webbed feet and a tail to move fast in the water, and nice long teeth to get all of its food that it needs. And what's also really interesting about the American beaver is because it is cutting down logs and creating dams on rivers, it floods the surrounding area, and then it creates wetland. And wetlands are really, really important because almost half of our endangered species live in wetlands. So wetlands are really important, and they are actually called ecosystem engineers because they create those wetlands. So what would we do without the beaver?
Hello, I'm Mrs. Sonatl, and I want to talk to you all today about the main predator we have in this area called the coyote. So the coyote is a member of the dog family, and they are larger than a fox. We have gray foxes and red foxes in our area, smaller than a wolf, and about the same size as some of you would know the dog that's called a husky, a Siberian husky. We don't have wolves anymore in this area, so if you see an animal that looks sort of like this coyote, just try to figure out whether it's the smaller fox, which you might see a red one. It would have a more reddish coat and blacker legs, or whether it's larger, and then that would be the coyote. So where does the coyote live? The coyote lives in prairies, fields, and then sometimes in the woods. And sometimes there's a difference in their coat color. So if they live in the prairie or spend more time there, their color might be lighter. If they're in the woods with all the dark trees, their coat might be darker, a way of camouflaging them. And then where do coyotes live? Like, they don't build a shelter per se. If they're just the adults by themselves, they may curl up somewhere safe, and they have this nice long tail here, which they could wrap around their nose like that to keep warm in the snow. But when they're ready to have babies, they do need to have a den. So some of our coyotes actually live in cities. In Chicago, there's quite the coyote population, and they make their dens under sidewalks or maybe next to a bridge, place like that, and they move around along railroad tracks and along the streams. But other than that, they look for hillsides where they could have a hole in the hillside, or maybe a hollow log in the woods where they can dig out a den. And then you might be wondering, what do coyotes eat? Well, they eat all sorts of things. They are omnivores, like people. That means they eat meat and plants. And so most of their diet is small animals like mice, rabbits, squirrels, but then they eat lots of other things. They might eat a frog if they're down by the pond and they can catch one. They might eat birds or bird eggs, even insects, and then sometimes deer. So you see that the coyote has these long legs, which actually helped him to chase animals, like the deer. So he has to run very fast to be able to catch a deer. Even a fawn is going to be able to run pretty fast. So that's an adaptation that the coyote has. I mentioned before that the coyote is an omnivore and a meat eater. So he has these big canine teeth in the front, and that allows him to grab his food and tear it. If he's eating something like a rabbit that he can't just swallow in a mouthful, he has to have these canine teeth, and we have canine teeth too, actually. And then, as I mentioned before, I believe that his eyes are situated toward the front so that he can see what prey is out there. So those are some of the adaptations that you find in a coyote that help him succeed in living and surviving. And now that we're out here in the snow, just have to mention, they don't have houses to go into like we do, so they grow a nice thick warm coat with these guard hairs like the beaver has, and a soft undercoat, and that keeps them nice and cozy. And Unlike the beaver, although he can swim just like a dog, he certainly can't swim even with these long legs fast enough to catch a beaver.
Hi, I am Mrs. Kohlmeyer, and today I have a visitor to tell you guys about. This is an opossum. A lot of times we also hear them just referred to as possums, but their actual full name is opossum. It has an O at the beginning of the word. These are really cool little fun critters that live near us. You may see them around your homes or around parks or around your schools. They do like to live in our area. They especially like wooded areas. They also will go around fields, and they do like some damp areas, so maybe near water like a small little stream, or some marshy or wetter areas on the edges of other natural areas where they like to spend their time. These are very, very special animals because you guys have heard of koalas and kangaroos, and there's some special animals like that that have pockets, but they don't live around here. These opossums, though, also have a pocket. They are the only mammal in North America that has a pocket. They are North America's only marsupial. They have this little pocket on their belly, and that's where, when their babies are born, they can stay nice and cozy, and they nurse from their mom, and that's where they are carried until they're big enough to come out and start to learn how to live on their own. So another thing that's really special about opossums is what they eat. So you guys have probably heard of a carnivore that likes to eat meat, or an herbivore that likes to eat plants. Opossums are omnivores. They like to eat both. So they eat a little bit of everything. They might scavenge around and eat some plants that look tasty. Another thing that's really cool about them is that they have more teeth than any other land animal in North America. 50 chompers in there. And they have some sharp little nails. They can maybe dig a little bit and scratch and try to find some bugs. They also have something really special here, just like we do. They actually have a thumb that helps them grab things. So that will help them get food, help them eat, and it also helps them when they are trying to find shelter or trying to climb trees. They like to hang out in trees, even though they don't live up there. They tend to live more on the ground, and they really like to move into homes that other animals have already made and moved out of. So they're not the best builders, but they will move into a home that's already available. What they eat as omnivores, aside from the bugs and little plants, they could also maybe find eggs or really anything that's around that looks good to them. They might find garbage, or if people leave out cat food or things for their pets or animals in the neighborhood, they'll probably eat that too. They'll eat whatever they can find. So since they don't like to live in trees and they don't burrow under the ground, and they like to move into other critters' homes, they'll get really comfy and cozy in there and use those also as hiding places, and where they stay safe in there and hide. They're hiding from predators. When they sleep, they need to be safe, and so a predator is another animal that might want to eat the possum. So they don't want that, of course. So they have some things that will help protect them. Part of that would be camouflage. As you can see, the color of their coat kind of blends in with the trees and with plants that you might see, like grasses in a field. When they're starting to turn yellow and brown and tan, so they blend in nicely to hide. They can also climb up trees to get away from other animals that don't climb, like a fox or a coyote or a dog, but that won't protect them from some of their other predators that can go up in the trees, like hawks and owls. So for those things, they might hide into the burrows and dens, like the places where they live. So this is a very special animal. They have also this really cool tail. It's called a prehensile tail, and that means that they can move it, kind of like having another arm or a leg, and that will help them to grab onto a tree branch or to get their balance, sometimes even to go upside down and move from one branch to another. And sometimes you'll even see them hanging upside down, like the little babies you'll see a little bit in pictures, sometimes hanging upside down, which looks like fun to do. So all in all, this is a very special animal, an opossum, and they're actually pretty cute as well.
Hello, mighty Acorns. My name is Mrs. Neuffer, and I'm here today to talk about great horned owls. I'm I'm looking up in the trees because that is part of their habitat. Great horned owls are fairly common in Illinois, but they need trees to live in. They need woodlands, they need trees because they provide areas for them to roost and hide. They also provide nesting areas. Great horned owls like to be in cavities. They don't make their own nests, but they find a cavity that in a tree, or sometimes they take over nests of other hawks that are made of sticks. And they're one of our earliest nesting birds in the bird world. They're nesting in early February. So what do owls eat? Most of their diet consists of mice and voles, rabbits, squirrels. They might eat birds and opossums. And did you know that they also eat skunk? So how do they catch their prey? Well, they have these incredible talons that are really sharp, and they can come in and grab their prey. This is a little chipmunk, and they grab it and take it away very quickly. So what are some of the other adaptations that they have? They also have incredible hearing. So I want you now to cup your ears like this, and you can hear better when you do that. But owls have one ear that is higher than the other, and they are on the sides of their head, and having them a little bit off center, or it's called asynchronous hearing, allows them to zoom in on their prey. And they can pinpoint a mouse moving about 50 feet away in the snow. Listen. So that's how they hear. The other adaptation that they have, which is amazing, are special eyes. And they have eyes in the front of their head. Go ahead and do this. And they can't move their eyes because they have really deep sockets. This is a skull of an owl. It's actually a replica of the great horned owl. And you can see that the eye sockets make up most of their skull. And they're set into the skull, so they can't move them. Like they can't move them from the left to the right, like we can. They are focused just straight ahead. So that's why owls sometimes look a little goofy when they kind of move around and look up and down, because those eyes are set in their head where they can't move them and look around. You also see the really sharp beak that they have so that they can tear the prey that they catch. So that's a little bit about their skulls. One of the other adaptations they have, though, and the most amazing one, is their silent flight. This is an actual flight feathers from the owl. And what's special about this are these little ridges on the edges of the feathers, and that allows the wind to go through them. So when they fly, it's absolutely silent. Did you hear that wing? They move quickly and grab their prey. So these are pretty amazing birds. So hopefully you might hear or see an owl in your neighborhood.
So we saw how the deer live in the woods and how they use the different foods in the woods, acorns, bark, twigs, to eat. And you can actually get a lot of clues from looking at a skull of an animal to find out if it's a plant eater or a meat eater. So this is a deer skull, and because the deer is a plant eater or an herbivore, herbivores are going to have flat teeth. And you remember when you saw the teeth of the coyote, those were sharp because they're eating meat. And then the other thing interesting about the deer, you'll notice, is that they only have teeth on their bottom jaw. So a lot of times too, you can get clues if a deer was eating on a twig, because what they have to do is they can't make a clean cut like a beaver or a rabbit. Remember looking at those incisor teeth on the beaver? So what they have to do is when they're chewing, they kind of have to use their kind of a back and forth motion to get those materials off. So usually you'll see a branch kind of jaggedy or rough and not a clean cut, so that'll give you a clue that a deer may have been browsing there. Another thing about skulls is eye placement. So with deer and animals that are prey, their eyes are going to be on the side of their head because that helps them to keep awareness of their surroundings. Whereas if you look at an animal that's a predator, their eyes are going to be in the front because they're focusing on their prey. So there's a lot of things you can tell. So when you look at the other animals, get some clues about what you think those animals might eat, or whether they're predator or prey, by looking at their teeth and looking at their eye placement. So I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about how different animals are adapted to the winter. So next time you notice animals in your yard or in your neighborhood, or maybe at your local forest preserve, take a closer look and try to figure out how those animals are adapted to their environment. Look at some of the features they have, some of their physical adaptations, or what are they doing? What are some of their behaviors that help them to survive? So hope you are able to observe a lot of different animals in your neighborhood, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.